can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with the new, recently relaunched Avengers series by Jed MacKay and CF Villa. This is a new status quo for the Avengers. Not really going to talk about any of the stuff that happened in the previous series, mostly because I didn't finish it. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but just because there are a lot of comics that come out every week, not just Marvel and DC, but even like Image Comics, Boom Studios, Dark Horse, so on and so forth that I read. So any given week, I'm probably reading anywhere between like 15 to 20 different comics, and yeah. But this is a new jumping on point, and I'm going to treat it as such because I feel like you don't really need to know a whole heap of a lot about what's been going on with the Avengers as of late to be able to jump on the series. This is probably one of the best jumping on points I've seen for a team comic in a long time, and yeah, it's great. So to kick off this new series, we have a new chair, a new leader of the Avengers. In the previous iteration, it was Black Panther, and Black Panther's leadership had been somehow dissolved to someone else. I don't remember who. And before that, it was Iron Man, and then Captain America, so on and so forth. But this time around, the leader of the Avengers is going to be none other than Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel has been put in charge of the team, and it's also going to fill out its roster with characters like Sam Wilson as Captain America. We will also have Black Panther. We'll also have characters like Iron Man, Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Thor. All of them have been dealing with their own wild, wacky, zany, and crazy shenanigans over in their own respective comics. Right now, Carol Danvers has literally just dealt with the loss of what was effectively her sister, even though technically it's not actually her sister. Her actual birth sister, L'Oreal, is still alive and well. But during Kelly Thompson's Captain Marvel run, Carol had taken the power within herself that was, the source of her binary powers that she gained from the Brood. She was able to separate that part of herself, and it became its own sentient being, and that being was recently killed off and then returned, its essence returned to Captain Marvel. So she's been kind of going through it a little bit as of late. And we also know Iron Man has his own host of problems to deal with right now. He has lost pretty much almost all of his money. He has lost his company, and he is sparring right now with one of the X-Men's new and deadliest villains, and is coming up short. We also know that during the John Ridley run on Black Panther had lost his title of Black Panther. He is no longer the king of Wakanda. He has been kicked out, exiled, and no longer welcome in the Golden City. And at this particular point, he hasn't quite jumped over to the events that are going to take place in the upcoming Evel Ewing run on Black Panther, hence why he's still wearing the original suit and not the one that we have seen in all the solicits for the upcoming series. We also know Thor is dealing with his own host of problems right now. He has been going toe-to-toe with various and sundry villains. He has been running afoul of symbiotes, Doctor Doom, as well as even a little ways back getting his ass handed to him by his former alter ego, Donald Blake. He's also been having nightmares about the return of Thanos, who did recently get killed off in Kieran Gillen's Eternal series, but we know he's on his way back and introducing the Black Infinity Stone into the Marvel Comics universe. We have seen in some of Thor's nightmares the visions he's seen of the future where Thanos is wielding Thor's own hammer, Mjolnir, complete with inlaid Infinity Stones, with that new Black Infinity Stone with them. Vision has been dealing with his own existential crisis as of late because he felt as though he was not judged during the Judgment Day event, which is something that I think is a funny little point that's brought up by Captain Marvel, that a lot of people didn't even realize they were being judged half the time. So there is a possibility the Vision was judged and he just didn't know it, but it's left very ambiguous. It'll very likely be a plot point that's carried over the course of this series as the Avengers are trying to figure out all these tribulation events. More on that in just a moment. We also know that Sam Wilson as Captain America is dealing with his own host of problems right now. He is dealing with the events of Cold War while he's trying to help Steve Rogers take down the Outer Circle, which is being led by Steve Rogers' former war buddy turned enemy turned war buddy again, and now villain once again, Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. We also know that the character of Scarlet Witch has also been dealing with some things as of late. She has recently discovered that there is a material out there that can negate her magic powers. The Mysterium that as of late we have been largely associating with the X-Men, which is a material that was discovered in Al Ewing's Sword #1 in 2020. That metal has been haunting Scarlet Witch as of late. So she has also had her own plate of things to deal with, which kind of makes this team incredibly perfect to work together, especially considering everything they have to deal with coming up. Before I get into why this team is together, I really want to talk a little bit about team dynamic. The team dynamic here is going to be pretty wild because, well, for one, all these characters are already familiar with one another. They all know each other incredibly well, and some of them have some pretty interesting histories with one another. The fact that Captain Marvel and Iron Man are working together in this, while Iron Man has his full-throated support for Captain Marvel as chair, Carol is still relying on Tony's support as her sponsor, because some people may forget, Captain Marvel during a time had a drinking problem, and the person who she relied on to help her get straightened out was Tony Stark. We also know that Black Panther and Sam Wilson have had a little bit of beef as of late. During the Captain America Symbol of Truth story arc, they got into a little bit of a scuffle that went about the way you would probably expect, and they went their separate ways, but ultimately they're not on friendly terms right now. So the idea that these two guys are gonna have to sit in the same room with one another it's gonna be a little rough. And while I'm not the hugest fan of taking the only two black characters on the team and making them be at odds with one another, I'm not a huge fan of that approach. I have a feeling that it'll not be something that lasts. I have a feeling they'll get over it pretty quickly. And of course, we also know Scarlet Witch and Vision have not been particularly close as of late. Well, not to say that this is the last interaction they ever had, but one of the most major interactions people probably remember between Scarlet Witch and Vision is that one of the last times when Scarlet Witch tried to reunite with Vision, he pretty much shunned her and turned her away. And while technically Scarlet Witch has been interacting with Vision's daughter, Viv, there is still some awkwardness between these two characters that will also very likely get ironed out over the passage of time. And of course, we know that Black Panther as well as Thor have recently had a revelation of a deeper connection between the Asgardians and the Wakandans as of late, that characters like Boss has interacted with the Asgardians in the past, and that there is some deeper underlying meaning possibly that may get explored here between these two characters. And of course, all the characters have some kind of a beef with each other or some kind of a connection with each other in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So it's going to be a pretty interesting chemistry dynamic for the Avengers here. But the thing that is bringing them all together right now actually ties back to something that happened in the most recent edition of the Timeless one-shot, which has become this new thing that Jed MacKay has been doing as of late, where he'll set up all the future events of things that are going to be happening in the Marvel Comics universe and set them up in a one-shot that largely revolves around the character of Kang. Now, while some people will think, oh, it's the Terminus, this is what is bringing them together. No, this is just really the first thing that they're really going to fight. Terminus and its Termini drones are not really the threat here. The real threat here is that Kang has discovered a power in the universe that very well might likely be a variant of himself that is after something that is called the missing moment. The missing moment is referred to as the starting point of the road to the greatest prize in all of history, and we're never told what the prize is, but it's something that we know cannot be obtained by a villain. No person that is of villainous means should be able to achieve or witness the missing moment. It is not for villains to discover. It is only for heroes. And we even see over the course of that Timeless issue that both Kang the Conqueror is told this, as well as a new character by the name of Murden, which is supposed to be a play on the character Merlin. Merlin is heavily implied to be a variant of Kang. He seems to know all of Kang's comings and goings, his weaknesses, his strengths, knows how to circumvent all of Kang's securities within his fortress, and just knows a lot of stuff that only Kang would very likely know about himself. And while we never see Murden's face, it is always behind a mask in that Timeless issue. Yeah, I think it's safe to say it's probably someone who is likely a version of Kang. And while Kang reveals to Murden that because of the nature of who he is, he will also not be able to achieve the missing moment either, Murden is basically setting his Twilight Court on a path of destruction that's going to crash course with the Avengers. At the end of this issue, when Captain Marvel sacrifices herself to stop a black hole from enveloping the entire planet, she has the help of her fellow Avengers who are trying to help her stop it, but they're trying to warn her that they can't stop this. They need to actually get everyone to safety and evacuate as many people as humanly possible. But Captain Marvel believes that she can get the black hole away from the planet before it actually does any damage. And while Scarlet Witch is doing her best to use her hex magic to keep it, from destroying anything around them and absorbing them all into itself, an explosion occurs just the same, and we see Captain Marvel transported to some kind of a stasis cube, and in that stasis cube is Kang the Conqueror. Now, Carol and Kang have a very interesting history with one another, and not so much Carol in this version of Kang the Conqueror. However, she has had a direct connection to a character by the name of Marcus Immortus, who was the son of the Kang variant, Immortus. Now, the character of Marcus Immortus has been largely forgotten about, locked away in the vault of Marvel's problematic history with very problematic things. While I don't think any of that story arc from Avengers number 200 is going to play any factor into any of this, I'm pretty sure Carol is going to have some issue with looking at a guy who looks eerily like a guy who effectively sexually assaulted her and forcefully impregnated her. Now, once again, this version of Kang and that other character who's a son of a variant of Kang are not the same character, but there are definitely some similarities in appearance, and I don't think that that is by accident. The question now becomes, who the hell is Murden? I do think it is a variant of Kang. If for whatever reason that Jed MacKay would bring back Marcus Immortus but make him the version of Murden. Now, granted, Marcus Immortus was killed off long ago off panel. Marvel does not talk about him. They choose not to acknowledge him. He is persona non grata at Marvel, but I would be conflicted if they brought back that character in any fashion. But it would be interesting to see how Carol Danvers would respond to it, because Marvel has, as of late, been going back and revisiting problematic portions of their stories or entire stories altogether and recontextualizing them under a modern lens and cleaning them up, which I think is a great idea. Go back and try and read a comic from the 60s and 70s. If you are a person of color and or a woman and or a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, you would have a very difficult time reading that comic. Comics just weren't kind to people who weren't straight white men back then. But yeah, whoever this new player is, if they can have Kang on the ropes, and Kang is still effectively dying, he has trapped himself in this stasis so that he does not fully expire before he can stop Murden from trying to achieve the missing moment. The whole point here is that if Kang can achieve the missing moment himself, he is going to enlist heroes who he believes can, and that's exactly what he's doing. The reason why Carol is in the stasis cube is not because he's trying to do anything to her, it's because he's trying to get Carol, who right now is the leader of the Avengers, to point the Avengers in the direction of Murden and his Twilight Court to stop them, because Kang saw during the events of Timeless that while the Twilight Court themselves may not necessarily be the bad guys in all this, Murden is manipulating them to achieve what he cannot achieve himself. And what this will very likely lead to is the Twilight Court being good people who are about to do some incredibly bad things in the name of righteousness, but all the while secretly being manipulated by a whole villain. And this is going to be kind of the same for the Avengers. I doubt Kang actually wants to legitimately stop Murden because it's the right thing to do, but because he does at the end of the day want what he wants, and he also wants to get revenge on Murden for killing him, or putting events in place that are going to lead to his death. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. I'm curious to see where Jed MacKay is gonna go with this. I'm willing to give him the time to cook on this one, because I really have enjoyed a lot of the things that he's written as of late, and I'm very interested to know like how this is gonna play out. Like, who is Murden at the end of the day? Like, is it going to be a Kang variant that we have seen before, or a brand new Kang variant we've never met, or a problematic one being brought back into the spotlight? Who really knows? But if you enjoyed this video, do the YouTube thing, like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure to tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the videos I put out. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and let me know what you think about the kickoff for Jed MacKay's Avengers series. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.